Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religions, and our Wednesday, Sunday, sometimes, often, but sometimes repeating kind of show thing. Happy Hanukkah. Yeah, happy Hanukkah to you all. Because whether you like it or not, the word Israel means to struggle with God. The people Israel are those that struggle with God. So if you at any point struggle with God, welcome to the tribe. Welcome to the tribe. You are part of Israel. And if you think the Jews don't struggle with God, go talk to them. They're still struggling.
I think God won the struggle 2 falls out of 3.
Well, it depends on how you're scoring, but sure, okay. So, peace and respect, Brother Mac, everyone in the side chat, anyone who might watch this in the future, and of course to our brother BigZebra.com, the great striped one, and Big Zebra. You said you had something for us. Would you go ahead with that?
Certainly. These were just sort of notes I made of things that struck my interest in the Bible. And I'm kind of interested to see what Richard and Mac make out of them.
Nice.
There's one particularly beautiful passage in Matthew, and I have heard that it conforms to an early Christian idea that Jesus, instead of being the Son of God, was the adopted Son of God.
Oh.
And how that works is we remember, I think this comes from when Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. And when he was baptized, a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased." And of course, there are different ideas of who Jesus is or was, or maybe what he represents. And I thought that might be an interesting notion. I think Richard might regard God overall as a sort of an idealized form, a sort of Platonic ideal. But I'm putting words in Richard's mouth. And so I'm not sure how he would regard God and Jesus. So, turning it over.
I would like Mac to go first.
Yeah, go first, Mac. Hurry up.
Unless you don't want to.
No, I'd love to. So the idea of that moment being a moment of adoption is really interesting to me and really compelling to me. I think there's something to be said there. I think, and just to be clear, we're looking at Matthew 3:17 specifically. It's, right after Jesus was baptized, and Jesus had to kind of bully John into into baptizing him. He's like, you gotta do this for me. And John's like, all right, I'll do it. And then the dove came down, and a voice from heaven. So it says he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove, and that's what you mean by Richard's Platonic forms, I think. The Spirit of God, not corresponding to an individual, but to like an ideal, and alighting on this individual. And then there's a voice that says, "This is my Son who I love, with him I am well pleased." I think in terms of in terms of grammatically understanding this, it sounds like an infinitive, like he's already my beloved Son, and I'm already well pleased with him. It's not like from now on, or like at this moment and beyond necessarily. But I think that you're correct, that there is an implication and should be a conversation about, whether or not there was Jesus, was a deity until that point, I think there is. I think different traditions think of it differently, like some will say, yep, that's the moment when he became Christ, others would say he was always Christ. He could be nothing else but Christ. So it actually kind of fits into the whole Trinity conversation, really.
Well, there's that Christian thing where Jesus, the notion that Jesus created the universe as appointed by God to be there at the moment of creation. I don't know how that works, but it is an idea that Christians frequently hold.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should let Richard expound on this, because he's already getting some juice out of Strong's here.
Well, most scholars will endorse Strong's and Jusinius. And I'm not a scholar, so I stand on the shoulders of giants. It's always important to read this, so that you can understand how it can be used or should be used, depending. And then from that, read this, all of it. Give me a moment. And try to come up with an English word that means all that simultaneously. Okay?
All right.
So some key ideas here is origin, which is, proceeding forward, emotion or action, right? So from out of time or place. So this is something like a beginning that is eternal. It goes forward in time-space. Time.
Can I interject?
Always.
I think the word that was used, the Catholic Church and the Greek Orthodox Church argued about this, and they used different words for it. And then they came to the agreement that both the words really meant the same thing. And I think the word used by the Catholics was consubstantiation.
I think you're
right.
I've
I typed it into chat, and now I'm going to look it up. Oh, right. Okay, so the word's been adopted. Christ is... Google says Christ is consubstantial with the Father. But it really comes down to being another way to talk about the Trinity. I'm not so sure. Yeah, so it's different in aspect, but of the same essence.
Right.
And maybe you could make the comparison that water and ice are of the same essence, but different in aspect.
Well,
but I think these definitions are always going to be a bit unsatisfying. But it may be something we have, at least.
I have to say, frankly, maybe it's no, it certainly is irreligious of me, but I feel like when people start to go back and forth about things like the Trinity, it's like arguing about the anatomy of God, like trying to figure out exactly what shape God is, and it's just kind of a silly and childish pursuit, I think. I don't know, like it's sort of beside the point. I don't want to know like how many legs God has, That's interesting.
You could say 0 or all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's...
I just looked, I wanted to correct myself. I thought that consubstantiation was a Catholic notion.
Oh.
but the Catholic Encyclopedia calls it an heretical doctrine.
Oh.
What was that word again? Heretical?
Heretical. Heresy.
Heretical. Yeah.
Yes. So I confess that I'm clearly wrong about attributing this to Catholic. Apparently they were obsessed. There were so many years when there was an obsession about what the Eucharist was and what it meant.
Oh, sure.
And long debates and maybe a few wars.
Can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
Don't have to imagine. They did it.
Anyway, I can't read it all here, but I'll put a link into chat for those who are interested. Oh, hello, Moon Nettie. She's my good friend.
Peace and respect, Moon Medi.
It's quite a serious accusation in the chat
Of what?
that I think I'm just going to ignore. It's ridiculous. What? Why would you say that? GY6. What's the matter with you?
I don't even see this in chat. Who is
Oh.
GY6?
That's good. Maybe you already blocked them.
Oh, let me just talk about that real quick so we can settle this, since it's on my channel.
Okay.
A long-term friend of mine became religious when he was an atheist. He was a pretty hardcore atheist. In fact, he was getting offers to host shows and was starting to host some shows for like the Atheist Society of Austin, or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was kind of getting big in the community, and because of logic, he was forced into religiosity within Islam. Okay? Now, his wife remained atheistic. Although he was talking to her about these things, he was talking to her children, which were his adoptive children or stepchildren, about these things. Now, because he was so changed and religious and his wife could not understand that, they were unequally yoked at that point. That makes sense, yeah? So she started rejecting him, he started rejecting her. You know, you can imagine the trouble it would cause. Soon they were, you know, teeth and claws at each other, as you can imagine would be, right? Now, her oldest daughter was about 15 or something like that at this time. Okay? And her daughter's best friend had been physically abused and sexually molested by her stepdad.
Oh.
Okay? And this was shared with this person's wife. It was less than a week that this woman had filed papers against my friend that he had done that to her stepdaughter.
Whoa.
Well, that seems horribly convenient that those things are so close in time.
Whoa.
More than that, in the United States today, people get accused of things. Not all people who get accused of things are guilty of the thing. Now, I do not know if my friend is... can we take down this comment, this last comment by GY6? That is an unjust comment. And you're accusing people that you do not know are guilty. You see, that will be found. Will be found. Please consider your own writing. Will be found. Will be found means the same as has not been found. So you are calling guilty literally a person that you do not know is guilty. Well, we are in the United States. You're welcome to go to Russia or China, where they don't have this law and this idea of innocent until proven guilty. But right now, I stand at innocent until proven guilty. All right? So GY6, whoever you're hiding behind, and I wish you'd just speak the truth of who you are, because I expect you are not some GY6 I've never heard of, that nobody knows who they are, and you're hiding. And by the way, it don't look good on you when you're hiding. So how about you become honest and actually clock in under your normal name that we know you under, and then we can have a discussion, but you're defeating yourself within your very statements, if you thought about it. Do I think it's possible my friend could be guilty? Of course that's logically possible. I totally accept that. Do the circumstances make it look like he is guilty? Actually, the circumstances are kind of fuzzy on this. Has that comment been taken down yet?
Yes. I did a while back.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It doesn't appear on the StreamYard on what I'm looking at right now, whether or not it's down. I can still read it. It's still up to me.
Maybe that's in the chat of StreamYards rather than YouTube. I took it down on YouTube.
That's correct. That's correct. It doesn't go away here.
No.
So thank you for that.
Well,
thank you for that. If we could move on.
Yes, I can tell you that there was a horrible incident in Canada where it just seemed that every single time there was a divorce anywhere in my area, accusations of satanic worship were involved, and or child abuse, and it became apparent that unscrupulous people would use this as a dagger, the accusation as a tactic, because for some.
I'm sorry, I'm really upset by this, Big Zebra. I'm going to interrupt you. I mean, you're talking about like things, and I appreciate that. Look, I have never. This is something that the guilty won't do, is directly deny. I have never touched a child in an inappropriate way. I have never been sexually aroused by touching some child.
Yeah.
Okay? I am not a supporter of pedophilia. In fact, I had to defend myself being attacked when I was 12 against a pedophile.
Oh, wow.
And I find the entire proposition not only false, but very, very offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because I was a victim. Okay? So I am not unconsciously repeating a cycle. You are associating me as guilty in a statement like, pedos gather here.
Jesus.
That is not true. Mac has never been accused, to the best of my knowledge. Steve has never been accused. I have never been accused. So because I am trying to be just and logical, you have made by association people guilty when the original party accused is not even been found guilty. So it's I understand the idea of protecting children, and I understand you being emotionally compelled by this. But the truth of the matter is you're jumping way ahead. You can't justify a thing you're saying in logic, in U.S. law, in morality, or anything else. Now, do I support children being protected? Deeply. Very deeply. However, this entire thing you're doing, I don't know. I mean, one could say, methinks you object too much. I could say that. You are too excited about this. Why are you so excited about this? Were you abused? Are you an abuser? How is this a topic? Why do you bring this up everywhere you can find me? Seems like the obsessed person here is you. You're the obsessed one. Now I want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
Peace and respect, Clout, and the good advice. If we could completely let go of that topic now that it's been fully explained.
For sure.
Okay.
And move on with the actual show, it would be excellent.
I would love to.
We were talking about Christology, I guess would be the subject.
Yes.
And I was wondering if we were right to... I was trying to for some reason, explain your views when we have you here.
Yes.
Richard. But I
do that too.
suggested that you regarded God as an idealized Platonic form.
Not exactly true.
Okay, so maybe for those playing the home version of this game, including me, you could
Yes.
direct our thinking on this.
Okay, so first I went through all of what you guys just spoke of in the baptism of Christ scene.
Uh-huh.
And I want to give you some depth of these words in the order that they were given. Okay? Now this is going to be slightly anti-Christian, but it's what the text reads. If the text has no value, I don't know why we even call ourselves Christians. In the cumulative sense also, meaning in addition to this. All right? Understand. Like, behold means to understand a thing. Not just, oh, I saw a flash in my vision, it was a thing. No, it's to see and understand. And in a disclosing sense, an announcement. Announcing. And in a timely sense, in the sense of time-space, the idea is something began and goes forever forward. So the announcement itself is claiming that this statement I'm about to make goes forever forward from this exact moment in time. That's the idea, okay? And that it's made from a high place and that it is a promise. It's not just a casual talking. Peace and respect to James Apperson. It's not casual talk. And when it reads he, like, it's this exact one. It's not a group. It's a singular in the idea of numerical identity. A singular, that one, like you're pointing. Okay? Hold on a second. Let me bring the verse back up so everyone can see what we're talking about here. So it's the highlighted verse there. Yeah. And is called this exact, my beloved. Right? And then the next word is in the idea of kinship as a kinsman, son, right? So this son could be translated as nephew, just so you know.
Interesting.
Which, again, that's perfect identity. I'm referring to the same one. I did not change the topic. I think well of. Okay? So, that's a very exacting, hyper-literal translation of this. Of course, you know, this is late Middle English. They're being kind of fancy. It's a KJV. But there you go. Now, did all of that seem to make sense to the words you see on there? And more importantly, does it logically follow and does it clarify the topic? I think it seriously clarifies it, and there's no opinion left. And what I mean by that is it's adoption.
So it would be adoption.
It absolutely is adoption. There's really no way around it. In fact, it works quite well as adoption throughout the text. In fact, if you dig into it, what you get is predestined adoption. That's what you end up with.
I mentioned before that there was, although as far as I know, no Christians believe in this now, but in an early form of Christianity, trying to explain Christ, it was that he was the adopted Son of God.
Yes.
And somehow this changed in terms of theology, dominant theology over the time.
That's correct. It is doctrine. It is dogma. It is not biblical.
And
but if you're going to say something like... What's that?
Why do you want to demolish this perfectly...
Because it's wrong. That's why. It's just evidently wrong. Okay? But, look, this, all of it is my daddy is bigger than yours. That's the entirety of the problem. if people would just go, what does the Bible claim? And this circles me back around to your other point, Big Zebra. What does the Bible actually claim? Okay, I'm gonna run through from the top, the highest echelon, right through the bottom, super quick and simple. The Bible claims that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, okay, is the hand between the four corners of the earth that pins it to the four corners of heaven. That's what Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is. That is literally the letters Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Okay? And what is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh? Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, spirit. What do you mean by spirit? I'll tell you what I mean by spirit. Wisdom, knowledge, counsel, understanding, fear, power, and conservation. That's spirit. Well, it's the same thing as saying I have the spirit of love or empathy. I have the spirit of wisdom, knowledge, counsel. Okay? It's immaterial constructs that can guide. That's what they are. They're guiding immaterial constructs. Okay. Now, more than once in the text reads that someone who is not God can be as God to another. It's what I'm trying to do with you right now. Now, I'm not God, but I'm trying to justify God to you. I am being as God to you in this moment. That's what I'm talking about right now. There's examples in the Bible. Aaron and Moses. God says, or the Father actually, says to Moses, take your brother, teach him, and to him you will be as God. And then in the relationship between the... Yeah, I know! And then the relationship between the Father and the Son. The same thing. It says to the intended reader, Jesus, call none God but the Father. Don't learn from somebody else. But Christians, not being the intended reader, have taken it as equivocation. That the Father is God. But that can't be so. Because the Father has his own experiences. The argumentation from identicals. In the LPT, there's a big problem with the Father being God, the Son being God, and yet necessarily that should mean that the Son is the Father. But they have different experiences now, don't they? So they can't both be, in an identical sense, the God, although they can perfectly follow a set of social constructs. They can perfectly follow that and be adherent, and in that way are God, but they are not literally the God. You see, Steve?
Mm.
Okay.
Well, I don't claim to understand, but I'm listening. You know what
Okay, let me put it this way. I live in the United States. I've agreed to the law of the land. I'm an adherent to the law of the land. That makes me of the United States.
Yeah.
All of us together are the United States. It's not a landmass, it's a set of ideas. Right? Follow? Make sense? Doesn't?
Yeah.
Okay. Same thing about heaven. They claim they have the perfect Constitution and Bill of Rights. They call that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Okay, they call that Yahweh.
On the name Yahweh?
Yeah. Well, it's not a variation. Yahweh is a variation. If you take Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh and you put in vowels, you get Jehovah. Okay?
Oh, okay.
That's why those letters appear in that order in the word. So it's a way to say the unsayable name. All right? And the Jews, out of respect, call it either the name or Jah, which is a shortened version of Jehovah. It's the first two letters, JH or YH. J and Y is the same thing. Anyway, to be adherent to that, the Father perfectly understanding that, being an ascended being in heaven, is the only one that Jesus is to count on for his coaching. So to him is God. For a time. But on Jesus' ascension and perfection, Jesus God. So it says so. You see? Once a it's like and the idea of adoption here in the baptism of Jesus, it's the same thing as a foreigner becoming naturalized in citizenship. You got to study the law. You have to understand it. You're gonna have a test, and then you're considered a citizen. It's just like that. It's the same thing. Jesus gets adopted by the Father, i.e., becomes adopted into heaven, becomes a citizen of heaven, accepting the Yod He Vav He as fact. In fact, the ultimate fact for running a society. But this is why you have the Father God, right? You have the angel of God. You have the Son of God. You have the Holy Spirit of God. And all of these are God. By the way, it's not a Trinity. Because nowhere does it say that the Father is the angel of God. Right? No, it names the angel of God. It says Gabriel. Well, is Gabriel the Father? Well, nobody thinks so. Well, why does he get kicked out? He's the one that shows up to Mary and stuff. He might be important. Michael, the enforcer of God. The Michael the hammer. Why does he get kicked out of the Trinity? So what is it actually? Well, the actuality is, and it makes sense, and it logically follows, and it's not self-defeating, and it's contextually consistent. Yod He Vav He, the Father, and other angels. That's a big group right there. But the Father, relationship with the Son. Son becomes adherent to God this day. There you go. So there is no actual problem of the logical.
I'll be with you in a moment.
Okay. So what Steve brought up is that it originally wasn't thought of the way that it is today, but all of that is, well, we need it to be bigger. That's all it is. But why not just accept the text for what it says if you're going to call it your foundation of your belief?
That seems reasonable.
I mean, if it's not, go try something else. And that's okay, or just become an atheist or whatever. That's okay. Right. But don't say I'm biblically adherent and then defeat what the text says about itself. Don't do that.
I mean, ironically, that defeats their claims, and so
it does.
It sets them up to be argued with successfully if they do that. And so,
yeah.
The bigger the claims they make, the easier it is to undermine them. So.
See, here it is right here. Yeah, Peter said it all. That's it. And you can leave the is out. Because the original words don't include the word is. Just God's Spirit. As a statement. That's it. It's really everything you need to know.
So
everything else just logically follows from God's Spirit.
So in an adoption, there's a moment where the father chooses, or the parents choose, the recipient of their, of their wisdom and of their knowledge and revelation. I guess if you want to keep it in the metaphor.
Peace and respect to Thick MILF 666. If you used more words, I would love to address you personally. But those were very, very few words, and I'm not going to presume I know what you mean. But if you'd use a lot of words, maybe I'll understand.
So anyway, in the form of a question, in that moment, Jesus' baptism, God reached down, or the Spirit of God reached down and filled, touched, transformed Jesus into the Christ, right? So there was a movement from the Father to the Son. There was an adoption in kind of in that sense too, right?
Yes.
A moment of grace, shall we say, irresistible grace. probably Jesus didn't have any kind of choice in it. It was coming.
I think Jesus does have some amount of free choice, and I think that's evident in the text. When I consider the Gospels and their variants, it's trying to show the next intended reader that he's not on a script. He's not. He's allowed to be himself. Yeah. Log out, come back in, Steve. Your devices are not connecting to StreamYard. Okay, so thick MILF, which comes off the tongue really easy and comfortably. Thick MILF. You said God is spirit, and that's all you have to know. To know about what? Religion, maybe? I'm late. And no, it's okay to be late. I'm more than happy to tend to you personally. It is a privilege to try to answer to you. I hope that what I always say always makes sense and is consistent. So far, people say it is. Of course, I could be confused by my own bias, but other people say it is. Okay? So to answer you directly, you said God is spirit. Yes. The Bible does not claim things like God made the whole universe. Doesn't claim that. But indeed what it does claim is what is necessity of God, and that being a social structure like a constitution and Bill of Rights for heaven. It demands of the heavenly host that they do certain things, just like the Constitution, Bill of Rights demand I do certain things. Well, one of the things the Bill of Rights and Constitution demand of me is that I don't kill. That's one of the demands, you know? And it gives me permission to pursue happiness. What the Yod-He Vav-He, or God, loosely speaking, demands of angels is that they go forward and create earths, put human beings on them, and then give them religion. And then, at the end of a certain amount of time, invite them into heaven. Not force them, invite them. Now, the invitation gets a little bit harsh over the course of 7 years. In fact, you'll probably think of it as cruel if you study that. But I do not assign that might makes right, but I do assign the idea that there is justifiability in that's a means to an end. And you might say, well, the means is difficult and even cruel. I'm okay with you saying that. It's a means to an end. So that God is spirit, and then there's beings, physical beings, that use the spirits of God on reality. Just like you can use humanitarianism, and that will compel you to do certain things. Steve, would you turn on your camera, because I was recently trolled. Just for thank you, Steve. You can turn it back off now. So, let's see, moving on in your question, and that's all you have to know. Yes, everything else logically follows from God as a constitution of heaven. And then there are beings in heaven that follow that constitution. It makes certain commandments to them, and they follow those commandments. And you can read of the commandments that are, you can read of that too. To know about what? Religion? I don't think there should be religion. I think that I can say that by Christian standards, both Jesus and the Father would be atheists. Because I don't think that either one of them believe in magic, the defeat or stretching of physics. They never assign any value to those kinds of ideas. They don't participate in magical thinking as the Christians do. And if you have further things, type them in the side chat. I'd be happy to try to answer to everyone who writes direct questions in the side chat, in fact. Peace and respect to Tommy. Okay, guys, what did you think about all that? Did any of that seem illogical or impossible or self-defeating or anti-biblical or... Now, it's anti-doctrinal. I'll say that right off the top. I am a huge heretic. I am.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely... I mean, I don't know of anybody that's within the fold that would be explaining things that way. People get close, though. It's interesting. like the language really starts to overlap in some conversations.
It does.
Yeah. Well, I guess you're using the same scripture, so the words might mean subtly different things depending on who's using them.
The difference between me and your average Christian, and yes, I'm a Christian because I'm a follower of Christ. I'm trying to imitate Christ as closely as possible.
I think
Okay.
that qualifies you. Yeah.
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 So,
Sure. Yeah.
do I believe all the church doctrines? I believe none. I believe all of none of the church doctrines.
Right.
However, I do see that most or all of them have some bit of biblical coherency. But I don't need to say, well, Catholic is closest, so I'm going to be Catholic.
Right.
Or Protestant, or whatever, Calvinist. I don't need to say that. What I need to say is, I understand these things based in the Bible. The Bible is my guide.
Right.
And then within the Bible and my reading of it, what do I receive in prayer? And can I disprove that prayer? Is it logically fallacious? Is it biblically incoherent? Right? Is it morally objectionable? Right? Do I intuit that is literally wrong in reality?
Mm-hmm.
And if I put it against all those measures, do I come up with something that is actually coherent within itself? Now, what I've adopted is coherent within itself with all those strict eliminating, not sustaining, not verifying, eliminating ideas. It still stands. And that's as close as anything that I know of that we can call quote-unquote true. Like, for instance, you see all the processes are elimination processes. They're not confirmation. And that's the scientific method, and what it's based in is you come up with an idea and you do your best to disprove it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole idea. You try to disqualify it. Thick MILF, I do not know in the philosophical usage of the word know. Like, a certainty of understanding that cannot be wrong and is true in reality. No. That's what no means. I do not know nearly anything. In fact, I can't prove I know a thing.
Right.
I'd be better off saying I know nothing. However, I can say the most reasonable thing to believe shouldn't be able to be destroyed by logic, coherency, correspondence theory, moral issues, these things that can disqualify it. If you apply all those things to an idea and it's still there, man, that's probably it.
It's as good as you get.
We don't get better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Peace and respect, Dr. Tapioca Weasel.
Nice.
And that's hilarious. He's weird. He's brilliant. He's not like a comedian weird brilliant like Steve is.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's weird brilliant in a very, very different way. And he actually does have a doctorate within his field, and he works in that field actually.
So cool.
And it's something about astrophysics of some kind. I don't understand everything he does, and maybe he shouldn't talk too much about it, but it's something like that. We're going to have to wrap up in the next 20 minutes, just so everyone knows that. I have another appointment. What's your position on the eschatological views promoted by, for example, the Left Behind books? Oh, the Left Behind books. Whereon Antichrist is going to take over the United Nations and a literal rapture. Okay.
Can I interrupt? Because I always find it...
Well, you already did.
Yes. So I guess I can. But I always find it hilarious how so many people in the U.S. think that the UN is this evil organization that's going to take over the United States and trying to destroy its sovereignty. I just find that endlessly amusing. I just wanted to put in those 2 cents.
So Dr. Tapioca Weasel, here's the problem. Telescopes are new. That's the answer to your question. It doesn't sound like it, but it actually is. Without telescopes, we looked at the night sky, and oh my gosh, I have to pause. That thing is just making a lot of noise. So what do? You throw a blanket over it. You don't answer the phone.
That's
okay,
why
so
I put my phone in a blanket.
There you go. Just keep it in a blanket all the time. You never answer it. Okay, so when we looked at the night sky, it's easy to perceive the idea of a dome that you're in this snow globe, right? Now, if you're in a snow globe and the snow globe is all of reality, there's nothing outside of that. All right? You're in the existence. So what does that mean? Well, that means you don't see God in the dome or on the planet, so God is not in the existence. God is somehow out of the existence. What are the implications of that? Inviso angels. Inviso heaven. Inviso Father. And Inviso God. And they never changed. They stayed with that idea. But then we discovered that, the right mirrors, condensing mirrors, and the right shapes of lenses and stuff like that, it's not a dome.
Right.
But we kept the tradition of the idea of the dome. The truth of the matter is, as you are well aware, there are things as big as galaxies moving in terms of space relatively fast, emitting huge amounts of light, and we can't see them. See, heaven could be the size of a galaxy, and it could be emitting the whitest of white lights, and it could be moving super fast, and it could be going just zigzagging across your screen like this. It could just be doing that. But if it's far enough away, man, you can't see it. So they have Inviso heaven, and Inviso God, and Inviso angels, because they didn't have a telescope. Now, does that make the Bible describing Inviso heaven? No, it doesn't. It gives an exterior measurement. It gives a starting point for measurement. And when that measurement is applied, you end up with the same measurement in all directions. That's definitionally a sphere. Everything else has points and flats that are nearer or farther from your starting measuring point. Sphere is the only thing it can be. It has a physical count. It gives colors. In fact, it gives 3 colors. Sardine stone, which is like a dimpled silver, shiny, mirrored look, like the belly of a sardine. Jasper, which is a magenta, the color of majesty, red. Funny we call it magenta. Which is printer red, which all of this painting I did behind me, I did with only printer red and black. I didn't add any yellow. Not a bit. And green, emerald green specifically. And those 3 colors are the colors of the things of heaven. Right? So, how do you color a immaterial construct? How do you paint that? You can't paint what's the color of indifference?
Right.
There's a good immaterial construct for you. Oh, I'm indifferent to that thing. Really? What color is your indifference? Mine's kind of a greenish yellow.
That's why iconography is forbidden in some traditions, is because, they're not material. They're, they can't be represented. And so
there's another reason.
You can only blaspheme if you try to.
There's another reason for that, because if you get it wrong, you've put into the people's heads the idea of something that will keep them from accepting heaven.
Right. That's true.
That's horrible. That is terrible. But try this easy.
Do otherwise.
Sorry?
They would say that you can't do otherwise. The arguments against that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
they would say that because the concepts of the subjects that the enormity of the subjects that you're trying to represent, you could never do it accurately. So,
If I may interject again, I have to leave a little early this time.
oh, okay.
So my
Okay.
apologies to you both. You've been a delight, much like myself.
You have been.
Yes, much like you.
Good to see you, Steve. Thank you
Oh,
so
it's
much.
been great getting the gang back together again.
For sure.
My goodbyes, and hope to see you next week.
Come back sometime.
I
Okay?
will. Okay.
All right,
Okay.
great. Let's see. Who's being harshest on me that I can answer to? This is pretty good, yeah. This is just a fact, though. We all should accept this. That's just true.
Burden of proof.
Yeah, I totally believe in the burden of the proof is on the claimant. Totally. But there's no one who I've run across yet who will argue with me that there isn't this immaterial construct called wisdom. And by the way, if there isn't wisdom, I don't know how you put a sentence together.
Right.
And obviously, if you put a sentence together, you're using wisdom. Also, is there knowledge? Well, you obviously understand English. You couldn't put a sentence together.
You've survived this long. You know something.
So actually, all the seven spirits of God biblically do factually exist in our experience, though they are immaterial constructs. They're real. Like you can buy knowledge. Did you know that?
Right.
You can sell it.
Yep.
It has material worth. People will pay for college.
People will
So
pay
yeah, we
for-
all know these things have value. What's that?
Now, people will pay for information that looks like knowledge, even if it's not.
Sure.
They'll gladly fork over money for, interesting ideas. I know nothing.
Yes, I know nothing. Nothing is a great position to start from, even if Schultz did say it. All right, so what can we say? We cannot say what is true, philosophically speaking, right?
Right.
But we can say what is most likely true. And maybe I don't often enough say, I think that what I'm saying is true. I cannot show it to be true, but I can show it is the most likely thing to be true.
Most people don't qualify their assertions that way. It should be understood if you're being honest.
It's kind of a debate tactic. We all understand that unless a person is lying, they are saying what they think is true, and that's not necessarily true. We already know this,
Right.
actually.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's not.
Right.
Shouldn't need to be said. Yeah.
But since several people recently have called me out on that, I guess I'll just say it every once in a while.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
I don't mind. I'm willing to admit reality. I'm okay with that. Right.
Man, it's a smart chat today. I like it.
Yeah. Really interesting humans.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I want. I want more. I want less GY6s, and I want more theological introspections. And Dr. Tapioca Weasel and Odie and all of you, actually. Thanks for having the kind of mind that wants to engage.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Why is that so rare? Poor Richard.
My next eldest brother, and he's brilliant, like ridiculously brilliant and hard to deal with.
Sure.
Hard to understand. I don't know if he was quoting someone else or if he came up with this observation. Common sense isn't.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. It's not.
Well, that's definitely true. Yeah.
They should have called it exceptional sense, not common sense.
Yeah.
Because apparently most of us don't have it.
Think right past it. I don't have it very often. I'm proud of myself when I make common sense decisions. It feels good. It's like, yeah, that made sense. All right, Richard. Well, thanks for your time as usual. And,
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's it's been awesome to do Sunday and today. So very cool. Maybe we could get together on Sunday again.
Well, I'd love to, like... So I have a piece of art showing in a gallery right now. And if it sells for what he thinks it will sell for in my part of the split...
Yeah.
I can retire doing one of those a month.
Nice.
That's all I would have to do is in one of those. And one of those takes me maybe 10 hours.
Oh, wow. Is it painting? What medium?
Okay, so I saw electrical art online.
Uh-huh.
And I watched videos of how people were doing it. And most of them were just like taking a welding machine
Mm-hmm.
and hooking it up on two opposite sides of a semiconductor
Uh-huh.
and flipping the switch.
Sure. Yeah, I've seen people
And
do
whatever
that.
comes out, comes out. Right?
Yeah. It's also really dangerous.
See, my audience isn't that big. I'll go ahead and say what I do.
All right.
But you just always end up with something that looks like a tree or lightning.
Yeah.
No matter what. And you look at that and go, oh, that's pretty cool. What if I told you I could create, I could take that same effect of burning into a semiconductor and do your family portrait?
Oh, wow.
Or a lowrider.
Right.
Or the Sangria de Cristo mountain range. Okay, so that's what I'm doing.
Very cool.
It's not random at all. The electricity itself is random, but if you can find a way to guide it,
Mm-hmm.
which I did. And yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Yeah.
And I'm actually using 12,000 volt DC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen people do that with pieces of wood, like woodworking, just as interesting finish. But yeah, it's always sort of lightnings out from the source. If it doesn't just pop.
You can't actually do much with that, you know?
Yeah. No. Oh, cool. Awesome. Very nice.
For instance.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap this thing up.
Cool. All right, well, until next time then. Thanks everybody in the chat. Nick Milf, hope to see you around again. And Theological Introspection and everybody. Yep. It's good to see everybody. Peace and respect.
It was good to have both of you here simultaneously. I know it can't happen all the time, but it's a treat.
It's really cool. It's really lively. Yeah. I love it too. All right, Richard.
Thank you very much, Mac. Peace and respect to you all. I want you all to know that I truly do look forward to the day that we're all great, and then Tapioca Weasel wrote something long. Okay, you were just talking to each other. I didn't want to shut it down while you guys were having a You guys stop the conversation. Find a way to wrap. Oh, peace and respect, Marty. I'm so glad I stayed on for one extra second, Marty. It's good to see you. Yeah. Marty, we keep promising each other. What's up? What's that? What's that? Miss you, sister. You ever get some time? Love to continue the conversation we were already having. Till next time, guys, I want you all to know that I truly do look forward to the day that we're all great friends. Till next time. It's okay, Marty.